Welcome to Behind the Inspiration Podcast. I am your host, Ken Waller. Today is a critical opportunity, I would say, for me to talk about something that's dear and near to everybody in this world. We're dealing with COVID-19, family, and I'm quite sure you understand the nature and the urgency to be vaccinated. We hear all types of stories. We hear all the reasons why we shouldn't get vaccinated. However, as you can tell, just all over the world, you see what's really going on. So today's show deals specifically with the urgency of getting vaccinated. To make sure that we understand what's going on and we'll be able to logically understand and take away some of the myths and also understand what it means to contract COVID-19. So today's special guest is Miss Yvette Woods, who will give us the clinical perspective of the things that we should know. And of course, she can debunk some of the myths and some of the actual reasons why folks say they don't need to take the vaccine. However, we all know that they do. And we also have a lady today with us, Miss Katherine Brooks, excuse me. Miss Brooks actually will give us her story, which I think is very compelling because Miss Brooks was stricken.
Of why I don't want to take the vaccine. For example, you'll hear there's something formulated within the vaccine that may cause me to get blood clots, that it's purposely going to cause me to get blood clots. And that's absolutely not true. We can debunk that. There were some issues and are some issues with the vaccine created by Johnson & Johnson and AstraZeneca, which did cause some blood clots for certain people, but they were young women between the ages of 18 and 40 who were on birth control. So that's an outlier for that vaccine. That does not mean it's going to happen to you. They did not, expand on the fact that you had well over 15 million people that received the J&J vaccine that did not develop a blood clot, or the AstraZeneca vaccine that did not develop a blood clot. You go all the way to the other extreme with a myth that the government has put something in the vaccine that's gonna cause them to know where I am. Well, they did that when they sent you your new debit card with the chip, if you remember. They didn't ask you, did you want that debit card? They said, here's your new debit card, and you start using it. Yes. There's that chip. You also carry a cell phone. So if they want to know where you are, they know where you are. It is not in the vaccine. Then you hear that if I take this vaccine, later I'm going to get sick and I'm going to die. It has to do with the end times in the Bible. It's the mark of the beast. And that too, I would like to debunk. This vaccine is created to help you. It is not created to harm you. The rumors that you are hearing are coming from people who don't have the knowledge about what the vaccine is and why it was created to do. If you think back to polio, let's look at polio. You don't hear about cases of polio anymore because they created a vaccine and now it's been eradicated. And that's exactly what we're trying to do with the COVID-19 vaccine.
Well, Ms. Wood, if you will, again, you're coming from the clinical side. I want people to be clear about that, is that you know what you're talking about. That's what you do for a living. And I just want to be sure. I'm hearing these things that, people don't know. They'll say like, I'm not taking it because I don't know what's in that stuff. You hear stories that, we start going back to experimental drugs back in the day, if we want to just be clear about it, with the Tuskegee project and things of that nature. So what is it that you see from the clinical side? Again, I understood everything that you said prior to this, but from the clinical side and that myth of thinking, do you run across people who consistently say, well, I don't care what anybody says from the clinical side, I'm just not taking it? So how does that work with the people that you may speak with on a regular basis?
Absolutely. The first thing is for the people that say, I don't know what's in it. When you pick up your prescription, any prescription from the pharmacy, they give you this piece of paper that's like 10 miles long with all this fine print. It tells you exactly what's in the medication. That's called the PI, the prescribing information. They have to tell you what's in it. And furthermore, I challenge you to go in your refrigerator and get a tub of margarine and tell me what's in that. because you can't even pronounce half the stuff that's in a tub of margarine, and you're putting that in your system. And yes, I have firsthand experience with someone who says, no matter what you say, I'm not taking that. And this is the tale of my two daughters. I recently took both of my two daughters on a vacation to Las Vegas. One is vaccinated, one is not. We came home, both of them had the Delta variant of COVID. The one that was vaccinated was up and around in 3 days. The other one, it's still down and it's 14 days. The unvaccinated daughter is still suffering because she absolutely refused to take the vaccine, citing, well, I don't know what's in it. The government could be trying to kill me. And as a parent, you do what you can. But as my grandmother would always say, a hard head makes a soft behind. And so now she realizes she should have took the vaccine. And she's laying in her bed, I want my mommy. I'm like, no, you don't, because you got COVID and I'm not coming. So you have to just listen to good common sense and decipher it for yourself. For those people who feel like, this is the Tuskegee Institute, go back in time. You've probably gotten your measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine. You've taken your chickenpox vaccine. You didn't question what was in it. They all started this way. Science is constantly evolving. It doesn't mean that anybody is a guinea pig. It's when you learn more, you do more. So they come up with a vaccine. It goes to the FDA. Trust me, the FDA is going through that with a fine-tooth comb before they approved it. That's why it took so long. In addition to the fact that the FDA is approving thousands of drugs, and it simply takes time to go through the process. Had they rushed that and approved it without knowing what was really in it, then you might be in trouble. But because they took their time to really look at the formulation and look at the efficacy of it, which means the effectiveness of it, then they can say, yes, this is safe for use for everyone.
Wow. I want to just touch on something that you said that I thought was critical in regards to how and what people say. I can remember, and I'm sure that we all can, that you couldn't even get in school without having your vaccine records. Still to this day, if I'm not mistaken, you can't get in school. You have to show some type of a vaccination book or whatever. So again, that's one of those myths I do know from a personal standpoint is just what it is, a myth. But I want to bring in Miss Katherine Brooks here because Miss Brooks has a very unique story, and I think that people really need to hear what she has to say about being vaccinated and how possibly those particular challenges could come in your own life. So, Ms. Brooks, if you like, I really would appreciate it if you would. Again, thank you for being on the Pioneer Inspiration Podcast. If you can share a little bit about your story, I would really appreciate it. I'm quite sure the listeners would too.
Thank you, Ken. I was diagnosed with COVID December the 10th. Prior to that, 5 days before I went to the hospital, I had all of the signs. I started off where my body was starting to feel weak. And then I just felt bad. I thought I had the flu, even though I had gotten the flu shot. And in my mind, I thought, well, I live with 3 other people. I didn't go anywhere except for once a month I would go to the store to, stock up on the things that I needed. And I knew that if I got COVID, somebody else in my house would have given it to me. So I progressively got worse. I had every symptom that they said. I couldn't breathe. I had a real bad headache, which I thought was an earache. I had an extremely high fever. I was so sick that all I could do was go to the bathroom and crawl back to the bed. I couldn't eat. I couldn't drink anything. And still, not thinking, dummy, you have COVID. I thought, I had the flu. So one day, my granddaughter came into the room and she was like, you are burning up. So I said, well, I guess I better go to the hospital. but I knew that I couldn't have anybody to take me and sit in the waiting room in the emergency room. So I called 911 and they came and took me. They saw me right away, and I did take a CAT scan. They gave me that. And then all I remember, the next day, the doctor came into the room and he was like, we're going to put you on a ventilator. And I'm thinking, oh, I got to call my family right away. So I called my family, and I told them I'm getting ready to go on a ventilator. That's all I remember. They took me off of the ventilator, I think, around January 1st. I don't really remember anything, that happened to me prior to that. My mind is still kind of cloudy, and it bothers me because I can't, remember. I'm a cancer survivor also. So I knew, I had cancer. I knew what the process was, and, I could accept that. But still today, I'm trying to figure out, well, how was it being on the ventilator? How much medicine did they give me? And I think they gave me a lot because I was in a hospital, and I won't name the name of the hospital, where I really didn't want to go. I live in Howard County, and the hospital here was too full, so they had to take me to another one. I really didn't want to go there. And I think once I got off of everything and went to a regular COVID floor, they say I was really like crazy. I was fighting not physically, but, I was refusing to do things. And I think the reason I did that was because nobody was telling me. I didn't really, understand what being on a ventilator was and what happens when you come off. I know they told me, they said that they tried to get me to do a swallow test. And I'm like, well, why do I have to do that when you haven't given me anything to eat? I hadn't had anything to eat prior to December the 10th, because I couldn't eat and I couldn't drink. So, they wouldn't tell me why. So I finally gave in and I got the test. So then I was like, okay, they gave me food. And I'm like, okay, can I go home now? So they were like, well, I need to see you walk before we can let you go. So, I'm like, I got to get out here. So I'm going to get up and walk. They didn't really take into consideration, okay, she's weak. She's been on a ventilator. She hasn't had any nourishment. So when I tried to walk, I got lightheaded. And then they said, oh, no, you can't go home. You have to go to rehab, not thinking, well, it didn't work today. That's progressively, let's let you sit on the side of the bed, maybe sit in a chair, and then work to walking. They immediately wanted to send me to a nursing home. Now, the nursing homes have people there that have COVID. I think they had more people, in the nursing homes that had COVID than any other places. So you're going to send me to a place where there's COVID. I'm just getting over COVID, which didn't really make sense to me. So, I went. I never got the physical therapy that I was supposed to get. So on January the 6th, I just decided I'm leaving and I signed myself out. Now, I still have brain fog. I still have difficulty breathing, especially going up and down the steps. But I'm doing a lot better than I was.
Ms. Brooks, I have to ask you this question because, I don't know what it feels like. I mean, I haven't been, I don't even want to say fortunate. I just haven't had to deal with that at this particular point. So, I mean, when you first felt ill, was there any indication that you had COVID, or you just thought you had a cold and you were just gonna get over it and keep moving? Or, again, how did you come to the conclusion that, okay, well, I'm not getting any better, my temperature's not going down? And did you accept that you had COVID, or you said, well, I'll wait until they tell me? Because I think that's what a lot of people are having that hesitancy with, is that they're feeling all these symptoms, but they think it's quote unquote the flu or something like that, and they're not even taking the next step to get checked out. So was that something that you went through, or no?
Well, I'm not really sure because, I'm thinking I did everything to protect myself. I didn't go out. And if I did go out, I would distance myself. I wore my mask. When people came into my house, which wasn't too many, and, right at the front door, I had hand sanitizers, I had face masks. So, if you're coming in, you have to, sanitize your hands and put on a face mask. And I thought I had done everything to protect myself. I have a 12-year-old granddaughter, and I definitely didn't want her to get sick, and she was going to school. My daughter is an event planner. So I just thought that I really thought if I was to get COVID, I was going to get it from my daughter, because people were still doing parties, they were still doing drive-by funerals, and all of the stuff that she had to be a part of. So I guess when I really didn't get any better and my fever got really extremely high, I really thought when I went to the hospital, I just had the flu real bad or pneumonia. I really didn't think that that I had COVID, because I thought if I had it, somebody in my house would have to have it too.
And Yvette, from the clinical side of the house, I'm just curious as far as the percentages. Of course, you can't give me the exact percentages in regards to just hypothetically in the Maryland area. I did see somewhere that the actual positive rates were going down, hospitalization was going down, but everything's opening back up. Now, I don't want to get into this big thing about masking and not masking. I don't really want to get into that. But my thought would be, how can you determine? Well, no, you can't. This is just hypothetical. How can you determine who's been vaccinated and who hasn't been? And I'm looking, and again, there's got to be some kind of clinical explanation as to why they're not defining that a little more. Because if you're going to open up schools, you're going to open up restaurants and all these things, and it's like almost, I always consider it being almost like an honor system, but how many people are going to be honest? So are they doing anything from that perspective to kind of like nail down some of the things that they should be doing, or mandating that they do, or they don't want to get into that?
Well, there actually are places that are mandating vaccines, especially like up in New York. Certain restaurants are requiring that you show your vaccination card. I was just finished loading my Clear on my cell phone, and it has a place for my vaccination card, because I do believe it's going to be needed to travel, and it is in certain places that you travel. When you get to the resort, they want to see your vaccination card. And they're also requiring that you take a test, a negative COVID test, before you're allowed to board the plane to return home. There's really no way outside of just asking people, are you vaccinated? And pray that they give you an honest answer. That they can do right now. Certain places are, as you see, are mandating it. The government's starting to mandate that their employees get vaccinated. United Airlines is saying that their employees must be vaccinated. And I was asking a question yesterday as I was enrolling my son for school. I said, how are we going to do this year? And they were like, well, we're going to mask. I said, okay, but what about your staff? And they said, well, Montgomery County has not mandated that their staff get vaccinated. But as the principal, I can tell you that 90% of my staff has been vaccinated. I said, yeah, but you still got 10 out there that can spread this variant, because we're talking about COVID-19. We're talking about the Delta variant, and we've got the Lambda variant coming close on the heels of the Delta variant. So as a parent, I'm concerned.
So, Ms. Brooks, I'm going to switch back over to you real quick, if you don't mind. You did say you had a 12-year-old granddaughter. Is that right? Now,
yes.
How do you talk to her in regards to potentially being vaccinated? Because maybe I'm wrong, Yvette. I'm sorry. I'm going to switch back to you again. How old are you? Well, what's the youngest age you can be to be vaccinated?
12.
12. Okay. So I guess that's my point, Ms. Brooks. So have you talking with your daughter to get your granddaughter vaccinated yet for school, or is that something that we haven't determined?
Oh, she's vaccinated. She turned 12 in May.
Okay.
And as soon as she turned 12, we got her vaccinated because she goes to a private school, and they were having them come in, but they had every morning before they left the house, they would have to fill out a form and submit it saying that she didn't have a temperature, and then they would allow them to come to the school. So I knew that she was going to be okay because she was, they checked it every day. I was just concerned more about my daughter, but yes, she's vaccinated.
Ms. Brooks, I guess I'll ask you this too. With having experienced COVID, the symptoms, the ventilator, the brain fog, and all those things, what could you share with individuals that are still fighting against being vaccinated? And do you speak with your own personal friends about the necessity, I would call it a necessity, to being vaccinated?
Well, like the lady was saying, I have a son, and he refuses to get vaccinated. We talk maybe 3 times a week, and I bring that up every day. And he has an excuse about, the government, you don't know what's in it, and, all of that. And, I have to wash my hand. I get to the point where I'm like, he has 2 kids, and I'm like, okay, just tell me where your money is. So when you go, we'll be spending your money, because he refuses to do it. But most of my friends have been vaccinated, and I try to talk to anybody. I don't mind sharing any of my stories, cancer or, being a COVID survivor, because I really just want people to know that, the vaccination works, and you need to get it done, because I think death is way more worse than anything you think getting vaccinated would do to you.
I believe that. And, again, my own personal story is basically the same thing. I have a 14-year-old grandson. We took him to get vaccinated on Tuesday. He was very adamant about it because I will share this. I think a lot of his apprehension came from social media. I'm just going to put it out there. I'm on social media. I'm all over the place. But when you're consistently reading something and it's giving you all this misinformation, you have a tendency to gravitate towards something that kind of like ring your bell. And you're like, I'm not going to take that. But, he's a basketball player as well. He's 14 years old, but he just about to be 6'4". So he plays basketball, and they start playing this weekend, I believe. I talked with the coach. I said, well, how are you guys going to manage that? He says, well, if you're on the bench, you have to wear your mask. But if you're on the basketball court, you don't have to. So I think just that part alone, it didn't really set with me until I understood that most parents were very adamant if their kids were going to play sports to be vaccinated. So that gave me a certain comfort level. So I would say that pretty much worked in that particular situation. But Yvette, I want to come back over to you again from the clinical side of the house, is to say with this booster thing that's coming up. Because again, I have a compromised immune system. And of course, I heard you, Ms. Brooks, say that you had a compromised immune system, which means that we are certainly candidates for this booster shot. So I heard something, Ms. Woods, about everybody possibly getting a continuous vaccinated booster vaccination. Did you hear anything about that yet?
And it's still being experimented on. And I don't mean experimented on as far as the medicine is an experiment. They're still trying to decide how often you're going to need this booster. And this is where I think the rumor comes from, that nobody knows what's in it. They developed the vaccine. They knew that the vaccine was effective against COVID. No, it didn't have 5 years of research like most drugs, so they didn't know how long it was going to be effective against it, just that they knew it would work. So now, the virus itself, it's becoming smarter. Like you've heard of bacteria that's resistant to penicillin. Certain germs can take on different forms. They mutate, they change, just like we change. And so the COVID has changed, and that's what it's mutated into, the Delta variant and the Lambda variant and whatever God knows may come behind it. And so the vaccine has to change to keep up with the changes of the variants. So they're saying now, okay, we created this vaccine. It was strong enough for the alpha, the original COVID, but it's not quite effective with this Delta, this new change. So we're going to give you an additional dose because we believe now it will increase your immunity and you won't get it at all. What the current vaccine is doing, that if you do get it, it shortens the length that you have it and it's not as severe, and you definitely don't go through what Ms. Katherine went through. So that's the beauty of the vaccine. Now with the third dose, you probably won't get it at all. And so that's what's happening now. Will you have to continually get this vaccine like we get the flu every year? That they have not said clearly or definitely yet. They're still looking at that. And I want everyone to know they are still running clinical trials on these boosters to improve them so that they can get it completely right like they did with the polio and the rubella vaccines. They had to do this with everything. It's just like baking a cake the first time. You may bake that cake and it may taste good, but it didn't rise quite the way grandma's did. Grandma learned how to do that over time. And that is what science is. As science learns, it improves. It's not we're not guinea pigs in a lab, so to speak. They've tested this before you got it, but they can improve upon it so that your experience with it is better.
So, on that note, Ms. Brooks, I want to give you an opportunity to, close out in regards to really trying to encourage people to get vaccinated, because I'm sure they don't want to go through what you've been through. So is there anything that you would like to add on prior to us wrapping this up?
Well, you just said it. I really do encourage everyone to get vaccinated, because what I went through, I really wouldn't want anybody to go through. I couldn't breathe. And again, just being on the ventilator, you really don't know what's happening to you, what they do to you while you're on the ventilator. I don't know what type of medicine that they gave me, and what the long-term effect is going to be, and not being able to, just having that brain fog, not being able to recall a lot of things. I know, like when I talk to my daughter, if I ask her certain things, she's like her mind is going really fast. And I'm like, I can't keep up with that, and that bothers me. So I really, just encourage everybody, you don't want to get sick. And again, whatever you think is in the vaccination is way better than being sick, being on a ventilator, and dying.
With that being said, family, Miss Yvette Woods, Miss Katherine Brooks, I appreciate your time, your encouragement to folk that may not understand the importance of being vaccinated from COVID-19. So family, please take this information to heart. If you're not vaccinated, make a move to do so. If you're vaccinated, encourage others to do so who haven't been. So again, thank you both for joining the Behind the Illustration podcast. So family, if you'd like to know any more about or further information about Miss Woods or Miss Brooks, you will find that information in the show notes. You can also visit my website at kwallerspeaks.com. You can reach me on Facebook. You can also check us out on our YouTube channel. Again, all this information will be listed in the show notes. So thank you very much for joining the Behind the Inspiration podcast. I'm your host, Ken Waller. Thank you again, Miss Yvette Woods, and thank you, Miss Kathy Brooks. Peace, family.